And we're back. Welcome back, everyone. This is episode 2. My name is Malik, and I'm with the one and only BB. BB, say what's up.
Yo, what's up?
And this is going to be a recap, I guess, of last week's episode.
Mm-hmm.
So, Beebs, take it away.
Yeah, last time we finished the episode by discussing a little bit over the different mindsets. At least one of the concepts that we want to get into at some point because we found that the concept has benefited us equally. It's the concept of a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset.
Okay.
It seems pretty straightforward. It seems pretty simple. Talking about the different mindsets really comes down to your perspective on life depending on what your upbringing looked like. More often than not, it depends on like your surrounding growing up. Typically, the mindset that a child will develop at least as early as possible will be the exact same mindset that their parents have carried in a standard nuclear family dynamic, right? You have the kids, they live with their parents, blah 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 blah. No complicated situations. Typically, whatever the mindset is that the parents have will carry down to the children. That's the typical situation when it comes down to mindset, when it comes down to fixed versus growth. The cool thing is once we were introduced to this concept, Matic and I quickly figured out, hey, you know what? This is something we need to expand on in regards to growth mindset. I remember personally, I definitely do naturally have a fixed mindset just because of like the way my upbringing was, and I remember even going back to like high school track, I was convinced that there was no other sport for me. Even if I tried, I was like naturally born to fail at it because the only thing I was meant to do in life was run hurdles. That was the biggest mistake, and I feel like the majority of people will agree. Once you graduate high school, you're just like, man, I should have done all the sports in the world.
Remember, I was talking to you yesterday
Yeah.
as we were like watching that football game,
Yeah.
and I was like, shoot, I kind of regret not playing football.
Yeah. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. But once again, we were kind of stuck with this fixed mindset. It's where Malik was just like, I need to honor my ancestors and play volleyball because Tunisian volleyball is apparently a big deal.
Yeah, it was just one of those things where it was just out of pride. It's like when your father did a sport or has done anything,
Right.
then you feel like I want to be exactly. It's like Mike. I want to be like my dad.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exactly how that feeling was. And my brother had done it too. So I was like, cool. My brother did wrestling and he did volleyball.
Mm-hmm.
So growing up, I was like freshman year volleyball and wrestling.
Yeah.
I hated wrestling, loved volleyball,
Mm-hmm.
and it just stuck, man. I was like, I don't want to play basketball. I don't care about football. I don't care about all the other sports. Same thing.
Yeah.
It has to be volleyball.
It kind of introduces a bit of a tangent to this topic, but it's kind of adorable how you're just like, it's just the idea that like you want to follow in your father's footsteps, ultimately to make him proud.
Yeah.
Right.
That was the main thing.
And I feel like there's definitely a huge connection to like the mindset topic, but another thing just to consider to keep in mind is that relates to the psychological need of competence. Right? Competence. A lot of people, they chase after their role model figures. They try to impress them to a degree in order that they can just hear the words, I'm proud of you. Or they can impress their fathers, right? Whatever the case is. It kind of connects to like I said, the psychological need of competence.
Words of affirmation.
Words of affirmation is related to it. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But that's a love language.
We still need some love from our parents,
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, just a random tangent topic there. Psychological need of competence is huge, and it could hugely relate to one's insecurities. Because right when you recognize that I have this psychological need and I'm not getting it, you can catch yourself from projecting a lot of your insecurities onto others. Because what typically happens is when it comes down to the psychological need of competence, once you feel incompetent, you then go out of your way to put others down to show them that they're not incompetent. But if you recognize, hey, there's a psychological need out there of competence, right? Feeling good enough, you can then start to recognize, hey, you know what? Sometimes I don't feel good enough. Hey, maybe I don't need to project that onto others. Maybe I don't need to put other people down just to make myself feel better. There's your tangent topic.
No. So, but to kind of piggyback off that, I thought about it because you raised up a good point. What happens if you're not good at volleyball? What happens if I wasn't good at volleyball? Right? That I would have felt like I was letting my family down, which would have been an even more crummier feeling.
Right. It would have made that insecurity really just more profound. It would have hurt even more.
I mean, I've tried other sports.
Right.
I played water polo for the 2 years with no swim experience. I did really well. And I really feel like I was probably a way better water polo player than a volleyball player. Meaning that if I was to actually stick to water polo and swim, which swim and volleyball were at the same season. So with me, I was like, I had to choose between the two, and I felt I never liked swimming. Just going back and forth and breaststrokes to this and that, back and forth and get timed for it. I didn't find the challenge in that. There's no passion. Now, when the guys were like, or the coaches, I mean, they were like, all right, guys, let's bring out the cages. I'm like, finally, water polo is going to start.
Yeah.
It was always, swimming to me was always just a drag or a hassle. So it's like, there's no way I'm going to pick volleyball. I'm going to be picking swim over volleyball. So fixed mindsets. I feel like to go on to that, I got a question. Fixed mindsets, what, in like a sentence, when you think of fixed mindset, what do you think of?
It brings back to kind of like the confusion we were having in the last episode, talking about like I kept assuming it was failure mindset, and I completely forgot the word fixed. So whenever I think of fixed mindset, I think of failure mindset. Naturally, whenever it comes down to growth, you will hit a plateau. Whether that's you learn a lot about plateaus when it comes down to exercise. But there's also plateaus when it comes down to financial success. There's plateaus when it comes down to social whatever, right? There's plateaus in everything related to growth. The fixed mindset is once you reach that plateau, once you reach a certain level of where you're at, you begin to assume that there is no longer an opportunity to improve. So you really start to shut yourself down when it comes down to trying harder. You immediately assume failure. You assume rejection. So it literally inhibits you from giving that extra push to then grow beyond where you're at.
I feel like it kind of correlates with each other with having a fixed mindset and complacency. Because exactly of what you were talking about right now, it's you feel like you plateaued. You feel like now typically when you plateau, it's basically mean like your body giving you a sign, or maybe like your bank account. I've been making $5,000, a month, for example, right? Off this business, off renting cars, or off whatever that you're doing. It's not gonna get it's not gonna get any better than this. You're like, okay, cool. So you automatically be like, there's no way for me to push myself, think outside the box, or do whatever it is to get past that number, right? And obviously, I'm just using 5,000 as just an example, but that is complacency. Thinking outside the box, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable is something that I feel like a lot of people talk about, but how many people do it? I remember growing up, as social as I always come out to be, growing up, I wasn't really very social. Family used to come over, I used to be like kind of hiding behind my mom. Whenever it'd be like going to the mosque at Ramadan and stuff like that, going to a different masjid, I'd look at my brother one time, and I'm like, man, how do you know all these people? How do you, basically I was telling my brother, like, how do you make friends? And he's like, I don't know, you just talk. But I feel like I had to be uncomfortable. I forced myself to be uncomfortable by having to talk to other people that I don't know, find commonalities, find different ways to properly communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't say force myself to be likable, but it forced myself to, communicate with different individuals with different communication styles. So I like the fact that I challenged myself, and years down later, I feel like I could talk to just about anyone,
Mm-hmm.
and I wouldn't be like, oh, I completely bombed that conversation.
Right.
When was the last time that you've talked to a person and you're like, I completely bombed that conversation?
I feel like that only happens in like a sales position.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they say with sales you have to like 90% of sales is like building rapport. Right.
It's definitely a numbers game.
You have to building rapport. The numbers game part of sales is talking to as many people as possible. But they say if you want to make that sale, you have to build a relationship with that person for them to feel trust in you, for them to feel like, you're more of a friend rather than just a dollar sign in their eyes.
It's more than just the product.
Yeah, you have to build rapport, build a relationship in order to make a sale. And I feel like, especially in the gym, there's a few times where I was just like, let me come at someone with something funny or something witty. And they would just look at me and just go, bro, I see right through you. Like, what are you doing? And I was just like, okay, I just completely bombed that interaction.
Like tacky salesman.
Yeah, it
vibe.
was just straight used car salesman vibes for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, having a fixed mindset, I mean, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a negative thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? But long term, I feel like it does hold you back from being fully fulfilled in life.
Yeah.
Because just because it's fixed for a while
Mm-hmm.
and it's fixed to how our life is right now,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that that same mindset is going to carry on 5 years, 10 years later
Mm-hmm.
when we're married,
Right.
when we have kids. That same mindset is it's not, because our lifestyles change. So it forces our minds and our perception and everything else just to change as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a great segue.
Complacency is actually a really good way to describe it. But you also got to consider some people choose complacency.
Yeah.
Some people are very comfortable with a 9 to 5. They're like, hey, you know what? I'm guaranteed a certain amount of money every month. After my job, I'm just gonna go home, have dinner, sit on the couch, wake up, and do it all the next day. Right? No disrespect to those people. Obviously, people have different personalities.
To each his own, man.
To each his own, absolutely.
That makes you happy. If that makes you fulfilled,
Mm-hmm.
all you.
Right. Or if you have a job that you're making like flipping, 6 figures, 200K a year, then by all means stick to it. don't go above and beyond. You're doing just fine. But complacency is a really good way to look at it. One thing I wanted to mention though, that's related to complacency and specific to I thought of it because of the example that you gave, where it was kind of just like, hey, I might have been a little bit awkward growing up. I wasn't really so social. I wasn't really good at going out of my way to initiate an interaction. That kind of brought me to the concept of the self-fulfilling prophecy, where, maybe when you were younger, I know you were a little chunky too, so that might have played a role into it.
I was thick.
But it might have been one of those things where the self-fulfilling prophecy, maybe in that example, was like you kept telling yourself, oh, I'm such an awkward guy. I'm such an awkward kid, right? And because you continue to reaffirm that belief that you're an awkward kid, it kept straying you away from the potential interactions.
See, I wouldn't say like I felt kind of like I was awkward.
I'm giving an example here.
Yeah, no, screw you. But but in that situation, I got in my mind I'd overthink it way too much.
Mm-hmm.
What am I gonna say? What kind of conversations am I even gonna have?
Mm-hmm.
I'll be thinking about that without even having conversations with people.
Mm-hmm.
So that I overwhelm myself, and I'm like, how can I even approach this person now?
Mm-hmm.
There's no way I can, because what am I gonna say? What am I gonna do? How am I gonna react? Oh, they're probably not gonna. Throw that negative, and then by the time I was like, had even an ounce of confidence, that was immediately diminished, gone. So I'm happy that happened. I feel like tough times make tough people,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I wouldn't say that's the toughest time of my life,
No,
obviously,
definitely not.
right?
Yeah.
But for the most part, I feel like that was definitely
It's a relatable example.
and it's a learning moment as well. I definitely
100%.
grew from it.
Right.
So we talked about fixed.
Well, we're not. We're. I don't. I before we change on to subject.
Okay.
Yeah. Before I was trying to connect the whole self-fulfilling prophecy to fixed mindset.
Mm.
Before you made this whole conversation about you, the point I was trying to get at with the self-fulfilling prophecy is, like you mentioned earlier. You mentioned it a little bit. It's kind of just like you hit a certain place where you feel like there's no potential for growth, and you begin to tell yourself, it's not going to get any better than this. You begin to tell yourself, I've reached the maximum of what I can achieve here, and if I try any harder, I'm just going to be wasting my time, which slowly ends up putting you in a position where you're just like, man, should I just, scrap it all and go back to the drawing board? So that whole self-fulfilling prophecy where you continue to reaffirm beliefs of lack of growth, it will keep you in this fixed mind state to where you literally will not experience growth because you no longer see potential in growth. So when it comes down to a fixed mindset, what you really, really have to do is the first things first, you have to recognize there is potential for growth here. From there, as long as your mindset is reaching towards growth, somehow your actions will move in the direction of growth. And sometimes you have to be insane, right? When you go by the textbook definition of insanity. Sometimes if you try something, it doesn't work the first time. Sometimes you kind of just have to grind it out, try and try again. And the beautiful thing about trying and trying again and getting your reps in, right? We always talk about getting our reps in, whatever it comes down to. But whenever you get your reps in, what you begin to realize is with every rep, you could potentially learn something that you didn't know before, because that's the whole point of experience. You're able to learn something different every single time with every repetition, in order that eventually you're able to create a system that almost never fails every single time you apply it.
And also adapting the student mentality of just constantly wanting to learn.
Yeah.
Because in order to grow, I feel like you have to learn whatever it is. You have to learn what you're doing wrong, right? And you have to learn. You also have to learn. I mean, what you're doing right. You have to constantly be like, ooh, you know what? I didn't like that. What happened? Like going back to sales, having simple interaction with a person. Maybe I came off way too tacky. Next person I speak to, let's make it a little bit more genuine. But how can I make it more genuine? And then that dialogue, that discussion that you have, just because you were open to just breaking down a certain situation, right? If you were like, oh, you know what? I tried it with that one customer. I cannot be a salesperson. I suck.
Fixed mindset.
I'm just going to go back to...
Sales is not for me.
Exactly. I'm going to go back to crunching numbers. I'm going to go back to whatever it is.
Answering phones.
That's all it is. That's all I'll ever be good for, because that's me. God made me like this. I hate when people say that, because you don't know what God made you for. You know what I'm saying? Like, God could make you for, like... It's just you can't play God, unfortunately, right? Or fortunately. But that forces you to, like...
Try.
Not knowing what God has in store for you is a beautiful thing. I'm happy that, like, the whole book, right, that was written, but, like, for, basically what every single second of our life, or how the outcome of our life will be, I'm happy that that was never revealed to humans. Because imagine that. Talk about fixed mindset. You're like, oh, well, man, I was just, I was, according to the rest of this, man, I was made to be a failure. Or I was made to be a successful.
When were you told?
When were you ever told? The second you start going into that, then you're like, okay, well, you automatically start expecting. Become a fixed mentality. Going back to this, you just become complacent, and you start being like, all right, cool, I don't need to work as hard. I'm already going to be successful. The reason why I use this up is just because life is not going your way, whether it's with business, in a relationship, and et cetera, it doesn't necessarily mean this is how your life is going to be. And we could try things over and over and over again. And my best example, for whatever reason it's coming to mind right now, is a relationship. You get to speak, to a person, talk to them for a couple months or however long you talk to them. Could be shorter, could be longer, with whatever intentions that you have, and it doesn't work out, well, on to the next. You're not gonna have one negative experience with a relationship, and you're like, all women are this, all men are trash. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's you go ahead, you take that.
Only your trash.
Facts. You take that experience and you learn from it.
The King of Trash podcast.
King of Trash, exactly. But yeah, that was my 2 cents.
You said something and I wanted to expand on it because it was such a perfect point. And it's a perfect example as to like how to get yourself out of the fixed mindset. You were saying I had an interaction with a customer, I tried to make a sale, and I completely fumbled the bag. Instead of saying I'm garbage at this, sales is not for me, which by the way is pretty much the only conversation I would have with myself when I was a personal trainer. That's the only thing I would say to myself. And it was funny because I was the only one. No, not the only one. But I was like, in terms of, like, I had a degree in this. So it kind of would stress me out. It's like, why am I not making the most sales? I'm the one with the most knowledge. That's a different point. The point I was trying to get at is the critical thinking aspect that you threw in.
Breaking down the situation. What went wrong with that?
Should I approach it differently this time? Maybe let me try to be more professional. Let me be more genuine. And then you said, how can I make it more genuine? And what that does is that actually opens up an opportunity for mentorship, right? How beautiful is that? Once you're able to ask yourself the right questions in terms of critical thinking and how to, because once again, once you change your mindset to growth mindset and you're like, hey, looking at a situation, how can I need to have more of a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset. We said you naturally will start to go into the direction of growth because that's just how your mindset is, because you literally just shifted your direction. So you ask yourself the question, I should be more genuine next time? How do I make it more genuine? All you literally do is, instead of digging, through repetitions and grinding out to find that answer, you quite simply go to your manager. You go to a mentor. You go to your parents. You go to somebody you look up to, a role model in life, and you ask them the question. This was the situation that I had. This is the outcome of the situation. How do I make it more genuine? 9 out of 10 times, if you're talking to the right mentors, especially in the line of work that you're in, or whatever the subject is, if they're professionals at whatever it is you're curious about, they will not only have the answer to that question that you've been asking yourself,
but even better,
they'll give you examples.
Yep.
They'll even give you an example of something that was even more challenging than your situation. And so you're literally putting yourself in an opportunity to learn and grow.
But also, in order to grow, and this is going to be very uncomfortable and easier said than done, but you're forced to be vulnerable.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Thank you.
You're forced to be, thank you for that.
Thank you for your vulnerability.
Yeah, thank you for that. Glad everyone knows this inside joke. But, you're forced to be vulnerable. Like, going up to a mentor, whether it be a manager, whether it be whatever it is, you're going to them and be like, hey, look, I'm not the ish. I'm not that guy. But I want to be. Give me some pointers. So, besides being vulnerable, another thing is you got to humble yourself. It forces you to humble yourself because, especially with sales, like ego, it's really ego driven. It really is, because you have to walk into a place, especially when you go business to business and you're selling and stuff, you have to make sure that you project to everyone that you're that guy, that you are the top sales rep, you're elite, you're alpha, and then all the other stuff that goes with that. But I feel like when you have the humility to go up to someone else that is doing a certain thing that you're not doing, or maybe they do that better than you, then shoot, ask away. You're only shooting yourself in the foot if you're not. Because you're going to continue with those half-assed conversations until like you end up quitting because you're like, I suck at this. Mm-hmm. But even though the other person may look at you and be like, oh my God, man, your only issue was interacting with customers, like the initial, that was your only issue. But man, you used to always close customers. Oh, like the whole from midway and on, you absolutely took over. And that's what I was having an issue with. And then you're like, oh shoot, really? Like, yeah, I'm only really good at like the initial conversations, but then after that, I get lost in the sauce. You get what I'm trying to say? So then after going to your mentor, you're like, dude, mentor, you're crushing it. It almost makes him more human. right? Where it's like, I went through that.
Yeah.
Like, this was my example. And as you said, the example that she gave was probably even worse than yours, right? The whole situation, the outcome, more humiliating and everything else. But it gets down to, okay, cool. You know what? I'm not alone.
You do have to break down your ego for sure.
Yeah.
In order for you to learn.
You do.
And this takes me to a very cool concept that I remember from just like basic psychology. You were saying earlier, you always have to have that student mentality because learning equals to growth. Cool, fantastic. But when you constantly keep yourself in that student mentality, then you only allow for opportunities to learn more, and learning more will lead to growth.
Of course, implementation is another big thing too.
Absolutely. I remember in basic psychology, it was the concept of adolescence. When we briefly brushed over, I took psychology. It was like a 4-week like winter intersession course, and so it happened so quick. But then again, you like pound through concepts so flipping fast that some of them just stick. One of those concepts was like I said, the concept of adolescence. And during your adolescence, it's categorized as a period of time in your life in which your brain is like a sponge, where you're just absorbing everything, life experiences, educational systems, jobs, whatever. You're just absorbing everything. And typically, a normal human being's adolescence comes to an end when they become financially independent. How do we make sense of that? Everybody, once they get to a certain dollar sign, right when they get to a certain level of success, that's when that ego really kicks in. And it's kind of just like, it's like they almost feel as though, I'm financially independent, who are you to teach me anything? I made it.
Yep.
I made it. Like, there's like, I'm the one who should be teaching, not be taught, right? So your adolescence comes to an end once you reach financial independence. Upon learning this concept, I very, very quickly convinced myself. I said, no matter what success I achieve in life, I need to constantly keep that adolescence open. Even if I've achieved all the success I could, I need to constantly have that student mindset to where it's, hey, this is where I am. Even though I'm happy with it, how can we learn? How can we go beyond? So a very, very, very important concept, this concept of adolescence. Don't let it become the reason you develop a fixed mindset just because you come across a little bit of success in your life.
Mm-hmm. And that really gets to you because, like, who are you?
Yeah, the ego.
You're gonna be talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
Do you not see the house I'm in? Do
right.
you not see the car I'm driving? But that's exactly how it is, man. Being able to just humble yourself.
Yeah, shatter your ego. And it's always funny when you have like mentors, because it's almost as if like just talking to them challenges you sometimes. Because sometimes you'll have a mentor where they know a lot about you because you've had enough conversations with them, so where they kind of understand your perspective in life and they kind of know what position you're in and how things are going. And then there's other mentors where you kind of interact with them every once in a while. So every time they go to like teach you a little bit, they go to talk to you about a certain subject, they immediately assume zero. So it becomes one of those conversations like with your homies or with your parents, to where it's almost like they're talking to you as if you're dumb. So everything they say, you're like, yeah, I know, right? Because it's almost as if they're challenging your competence. So you kind of want to, like your ego kicks out and is trying to say like almost as if like it's saying, don't assume I'm that dumb. So when you're talking to mentors, people like your parents, right? Or someone you just look up to, and they talk to you as if they're just assuming zero about what you actually know, it becomes challenging because you sit there and you're like, okay, well, I don't want him to think I'm dumb, but I want him to teach me something that I don't know. So sometimes you kind of just literally have to just bite your tongue, put your ego aside, and then just let it happen. They assume I know nothing. Cool. Let him get to the point that I'm trying to reach in this conversation. So it literally becomes a challenge to your ego. And the only way you're going to learn is if you just shatter your ego.
Yeah, I feel that's important in many different things. When you talk to a mentor for the first time, or even a person for the first time, they know nothing about you. And I really like that because I like that, but at the same time, I don't. I like the challenge.
I'll be honest, while you were looking at me, And I was so confused. I was literally thinking, I was like, bro, am I speaking a different language, bro? This dude's looking at me as if, like, nothing what I'm saying is making sense.
Yeah, no, it didn't. But
I was doing a different language next time.
Yeah, go ahead. Speak in Russian for us, bro. No, but going to it's like when you have a mentor, I don't necessarily like the fact of like parents being complete mentors, right? Even though like when you were young, from like the day you're born until a certain age, I feel like they have to be your teacher, the mentor, all of the above. But then after a certain age, you start getting like, oh, I got it, Dad. All right, cool. Like you don't have to remind me again, Mom, and et cetera, et cetera. Where if you make that distinction between like, okay, parents and then a random person, that is my mentor, right? I don't care. Your parents will always be your mentor throughout your whole life. Whenever you have the like worst times of your life, you always go back to your parents for the most part, right? It's like the whole mommy, like just hold me or whatever it is, that whole just comfort. That's really that we always result back to, right? Worst comes to worst and whatever it is. But like moving that aside, in order to like move away from that, I got it, Mom. All right, Dad, you're nagging me or whatever it is. I feel like if you have a third party, a person that you don't really know, that's in a field that you want to get to or that you're at but you want to get better at, I feel like their words will affect you more positively than coming from like family members or, because eventually they don't talk to you the way you want to be talked to. They say it exactly how it is. Right? Where your parents are like, well,
I got to consider his emotions, what he's been through, how he's different from his siblings.
Exactly, bro. You don't care. The guy does not care. He's like, hey, look, buddy, if I hurt your feelings, I'm sorry you feel like that. But you got to do better. Yeah. If you want to get better, this is how it has to be done. That's it. Period. Go screw yourself.
Yeah. No, I mean, well, that actually brings up the importance of just having thick skin. When it comes down to growth, like you said earlier, one of the first things you mentioned, it really requires you putting yourself in an uncomfortable position. If you don't have thick skin to be able to deal with people's attitudes, deal with other people's, tough mentalities.
In your own mood at the time.
And your own flipping mood at the time, bro. That is just, that is actually probably more important than any of it.
Because when you're in a mood, you have to it's tough to break out of it.
Yeah, sometimes you just want to take a nap.
Sometimes you just don't want to talk to no one. Sometimes you still want to do absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
You're just clouded. But
you have to have thick skin, because it's like at the end of the day you have to realize it's not like your dreams and your goals need to be bigger than you. Otherwise, if you're okay with being where you're at, you don't have any dreams or goals, right? And if you want to achieve something that's bigger than where you're at right now, it's gonna be painful. So you have to have thick skin. You have to be ready to just go through other people's bull crap, or like you said, even your own bull crap.
Sometimes your own bull crap is your biggest downfall, because you're out here always trying to point fingers at everyone else. What's the reason why I failed? Why didn't I do this? Because of traffic, because of that one person that looked at me wrong, or whatever it is. But how many times have you woke up, you slept that night, you were happy, you had that was a great day, it was a great week, it was a great month, everything was going normal, everything was going well. When you woke up that one morning and it's like you're absolutely mad, or you're depressed, or you're just not in a social mood at all. You're not approachable. Feel like the whole world's crashing. For what reason? I don't even know. Right? Maybe you slept on the wrong side of the bed. Maybe whatever it is, but it's all mental.
Right. No matter what, you still got to go to work. You still got bills to pay at the end of the month. You still got to get done what you need to get done, what's expected of you.
And that's talking from like a person that's single.
Right.
And that's already challenging. Now imagine if you're married, right? So you don't only have to look after yourself. You don't only have to take yourself into consideration. Now you have to take your spouse into consideration, your kids into consideration, because these people depend on you, and of course you'll then depend on them as well. But the whole thing is just it's an interesting thing to think about, because I know when I'm in a mood, for the most part I know I'm in a mood, and I'm in the car sometimes, I'm driving, and I'm like, why the heck am I feeling like this? Like, why? I'm pissed off. I'm even pissed off at myself. Even ask myself why.
Oh my god, yeah, straight up, yeah.
Right? I'm like, dude, shut up. But I don't know, but then I'm like, all right, medic, we've been through this before in the past. You're gonna have to ride the wave. You're gonna have to go with it. You still gotta do what you gotta do. You gotta ride it.
It is what it is. What's the next thing you gotta do and get it done?
Yep.
You know what's funny is actually more often than not, once you find yourself in that funk and you can recognize you're in a funk, you know how many times you know how many days in a row I would tell myself, man, today is just not my day. And then I realized, I'm like, you say that every day, you idiot. You have no choice at this point. Go do what you got to do.
Yep.
Because literally every day could not be your day. Literally every day could. So
well, you're almost looking for an excuse.
That's literally, yeah, you at that point, yes. That's the only thing.
If you're constantly saying that,
that's the only thing you're doing. You're looking for an excuse to have
a bad day.
Failure mindset, fixed mindset. It's all back to it, right? It's all full circle. But even when I catch myself in the funk, and I'm like, man, I don't know why I'm not just feeling it right now. I put a checklist in my head, and I go, even though I'm not feeling it, I got to do X, Y, Z.
Yep.
Usually one of those items is like, okay, I gotta braid the hood. I gotta, for example, wash a car, and then I gotta go to the post office to send something out, right? I put things in a checklist in my head real quick. Boom, you knock one out. Boom, you knock the second out. No matter what, however your mood is, no matter how you're feeling, it's nothing's physically stopping you from getting done what you need to get done.
Yep.
And every one of those things that you need to get done, really, 90% of the time does not require that much brain power. Does not require that much physical power.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get those things done, believe it or not, it will even improve your mood. It'll even improve your mood because you'll look back and you'll be like, wow, that actually felt productive, and you'll instantly feel less depressed. And then you'll instantly be like, what else can I achieve today? What else can I get done to even make my day more productive?
Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, I feel like making a list is very important because whenever you're in a funk, or in general, we want to feel the sense of accomplishment. So even if we do a list of 3 goals that we have to achieve, 3 tasks that we have to achieve, pay off my monthly today, call the insurance and pay off, whatever it may be, go to the post office, whatever it is, you feel like, okay, I accomplished one thing, even though it was just through an app, I accomplished the second thing, I accomplished the third, and you're like, oh shoot, I'm doing pretty well today.
I'm on a roll.
Heck yeah.
I haven't even had coffee yet.
Right? You start doing better and better and better, and then subconsciously you're doing so much better, and with every step forward towards every single goal that you're achieving for that day, you're feeling more and more better.
Mm-hmm.
You're feeling more and more confident.
Yeah.
Until eventually, you kind of get out of that funk and you kind of snap back into it, and you're like, or back out of it, I should say. And you're like, why was I even there?
Yeah.
Why? That was a waste of my time.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to go through it.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's where discipline kicks in. It's the discipline to get things done no matter what the circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're disciplined, you're pretty much, that's 90% of the work done.
Yeah.
Like today I didn't sleep really well last night. So I woke up, but I had to be at the warehouse early. But obviously since I woke up early, my mind was immediately like, when's the next time I get to sleep today? I literally wake up planning when I'm going to sleep again. Because I obviously need more sleep. And I get to the warehouse, I get done what I need to get done. And then I start relaxing on the couch. Maybe I'll get some shut-eye at the warehouse. And I was like, well, I'm hungry. I haven't had coffee. And then I was like, you know what? Let me just go home. I'm going to go back home. And I'm going to get a little bit more sleep. Somehow I ended up in the gym. Okay? How'd I end up in the gym? I literally told myself, if I go home and I try to knock out, chances are I'm going to sit on my phone for at least an hour.
Yep.
Blow through absolute mindless content. I might get a meal in. I'm going to get an unrestful sleep in. And then I'm going to get up at some point later today. And I'm going to look back at my day and I'm going to say, I've literally done nothing for myself. I had my one little errand in the morning. So on my way home, I said, I don't care how exhausted I am right now. I can just lower the intensity in the gym. But I'm going to go get a gym session in. I went in there. I flipping sent it. It was a hell of a gym session, too. It felt really nice, And then I went home, didn't sit on my phone for long, flipping knocked the hell out, got a nice restful sleep in, after I ate, actually. And then, boom, I woke up refreshed, and I was just moving differently, But it was literally that moment where I started to convince myself, I haven't had enough sleep, this gym session is not going to be effective.
Yep. Why are you even going? It's a waste of your time.
100%. And so I almost convinced myself out of it, but next thing you know, I was in the parking lot, parking the car.
Yep.
And I said, it is what it is, 30 minutes, 1 hour.
Doesn't matter. You're still here.
Yeah, we're going to get it done. We're going to get it done no matter what my mood is.
Well, that's important because, like, that's just the importance of showing up to anything. I remember when I first started the sales position of selling medical devices, I had 1 day of training and I went with the manager at the time, and the day flew. We're in like in Beverly Hills area, going account to account, and he's doing his thing. He knows a lot of these accounts because he's already walked in there a couple times. And then me not knowing anything about the medical field, having the most prestigious degree, communication degree.
Translates really well.
Yeah, I went and I was like, okay, cool, this is great. I look at my manager at the end of the day. I'm like, well, when's the next training? Like, I can't wait for tomorrow. He's like, well, about tomorrow.
You're on your own, son.
You are by yourself. So the reason why I bring up this conversation or I bring up this example is because at that time, I remember being at the parking lot outside one of the accounts for probably like 20 minutes. And I am contemplating life, right? All the emotions a human could physically go through, I'm going through them, right? Negative, anxiety, depression, happiness, you got this, let's go. I went from like freaking, I don't know, like super emo to like Tony Robbins, like, yeah, let's do this, rah, you know? And then I'd be like, all right, cool. Like 20 minutes later, all right, let's do this. You walk in, you fail at it, and you walk out, and I'm like, all right, cool, let's go to the next account.
Yeah.
But it's really because, like, with that mindset of just showing up. Now, if I'm already outside, I'm already here, and if it's like a sales position where you have to be physically at certain locations at certain times, then you really don't have that much time to kill. And then also, it's like, you're even if you want to go home, it's going to be at least like 45 to an hour drive. You're like, okay, well, I'm already over here. Yeah. I'm right outside. I'm walking distance. Let's just almost, right? Just to kind of talk myself into it. Let's get it over with. I know that might sound pretty bad, right? Because you're already getting in there with like a pretty crappy mentality. But you tell yourself that, and you eventually do it. But then the next time you do it, you tell yourself that again. You're like, okay, well, maybe that one time you go in, you're like, oh, all right, let's go get this conversation done with. You go in and then you have a good conversation. The receptionist didn't tell you to F off. You actually met the manager, or better yet, you met the actual owner. And you sat down, you had a conversation, you were actually able to give them a little pitch. And you walk out, you're like, oh shoot, I thought I was going to fail. Going back to this, remember at the beginning of the conversation, right? When we were talking about you had one negative experience in the rest of your day, all the other accounts that you're ever going to go into, it's just going to be fail, 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 fail. If I had that mentality, which I had, then I wasn't expecting positive. All I'm expecting every single time I get into an office was negative. But then when you have that one positive interaction, you have to hold on to it. Next time you get, for whatever reason, not chased out, but basically saying, yeah, okay, like stonewalled by the receptionist or whatever, selling position that you're in, you got to hold yourself together, and you have to think about the positive times, all those positive interactions that you have throughout the day, and that will get you by. And I just feel like showing up is so important. Even if you don't think you're going to do great, but at least you'll have more respect about yourself that you're like, I tried. I feel fulfilled that I tried, and then you can go back to yourself at night or whatever it is, recap, how can I do it better? Tomorrow I'm going to, a certain part of LA where I have to hit up these accounts. Let me work on my pitch. Let me talk to my mentor. Let me call around and see what I'm doing bad and how I can do better.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with failure. Yeah,
it definitely does have negative connotation.
It has a negative emotion attached to it, a negative feeling attached to it.
No one wants to feel.
No one wants to feel fail, like a fail. No one wants to feel fail. Yeah. No one wants to feel like a failure, but with failure could come motivation. You literally just have to shift your perspective on it. But you mentioned something, and it made me think of, you brought it up earlier. Nobody knows the outcome of how their life is supposed to be. Nobody was given their book that was written, through the power of God, of how your life is going to turn out. But day in and day out, people who do have fixed mindsets, people who do have failure mindsets, what do they always do? They negatively assume the outcome before they even commit to an action. A lot of people, they assume a negative outcome on like a business decision. No, but like, what if somebody crashes the car? What if I'm not making enough to make the monthly, right? They assume the worst, which inhibits them from even trying. right? So in a position like you were in, you could be in the parking lot and you could literally tell yourself, I'm going to walk in there. They're going to tell me to F off. I should not waste my time even walking in there.
Yep. I'm already going to get told that.
It's like, who on earth
Yep.
told you that that's literally what the outcome was going to be? Next thing you know, you find, once again, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? As cheesy as that saying is.
Shout out to Michael Scott for that, dude.
Yeah, shout out to Michael Scott for sure. We'll talk about his prison quote some other time, though.
Prison Mike.
But as cheesy, as like outplayed as that quote might be, the reality of the situation is, who are you to assume the future events?
Yes.
You literally have no reason to assume the worst outcome, except that you want to justify your failures.
That's all it is.
Except that you want to give yourself an excuse not to even try.
Yep. I'm gonna.
And you never know. No, like you said, sometimes you might go in, boom, it's the best interaction you ever had, and then you just have a moment of, holy smokes, I almost didn't do this.
It's bliss. I swear to God.
100%.
When you automatically expect that your an interaction or situation is not going to go good, but then it ends up just being way better than you would have ever thought it would be, that is the best feeling ever. Because it just shatters your expectations. You have you have no expectations.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, I'm going to fail. I'm going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Then you do it. You do really well in any situation. You're like, dude, I like this. I want it. And that motivates you to then have more interactions like that.
Yeah.
But then when you're back, because it's not always just rainbows and butterflies, right? Especially in sales.
Mm-hmm.
Next time you're in that same position or predicament, you have an example, or you have a moment in your life to go back to.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, you know what, Malik, I know what you're going through. You went through that last time, but guess what? Right when you went through that, you had that one good conversation, boom. And then from there, things go up. And it's crazy because, like, after that interaction, everyone else is going to have almost the same energy. You know why? Because you bring that energy. You go in with a huge smile, and that's authentic. Hey, how was you guys' day? Everything going well? Oh my God, there's so much traffic. I don't know. You pull conversations out of, places that don't have any sunlight. So, like, you automatically improve your mood, improve your swagger. You improve you're automatically charismatic, and everyone just gravitates towards that.
Mm-hmm.
Where, as opposed to, like, you're like, oh my God, well, hey, how's your day going? It's windy outside, dude. I don't even want to talk to myself.
Mm-hmm.
I look myself in the mirror. I'm like, dude, can you move away? The manager's not here. I'm feeling the same thing just to reject myself.
That's funny.
Yeah, but it's crazy how we only focus on the fixed mentality.
Yeah,
but
because it's easier.
It is.
It's so much easier to just be lazy and do nothing.
But we resonate, and by we, like, besides me and you, or you and I, whatever, English, everyone else could resonate with this, right? Well, I resonated with so much that I didn't even know what the second one was.
What?
we have fixed mentality. And what's the second one? Growth.
Yeah. Fixed versus growth mindset.
It's tough. It's easier said than done.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, as long as you're aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it, then it'll make sense. The why, there always has to be a reason why. Mm-hmm. Why am I waking up every single morning and doing this? Why am I doing what I do, right? Why am I washing cars and preparing it for the customer? Because the customer will enjoy the car. They'll probably, like, give you a good review. They'll come back to you. They'll refer their homies. Whatever it is. There has to be a reason why. Yeah. I mean, I feel like this was... you know what? What was your takeaway?
What
was your takeaway from this whole thing?
From this whole thing? Wow, the takeaway is definitely not doing enough. And, yeah, definitely just not doing enough. There's always opportunities to just do more. Mm-hmm. In my day, in my life. I feel like that's my takeaway with every single day, though. I just kind of sit there at the end of the day and I'm just like, wow, I've done nothing, which is like a little bit motivating, a little bit depressing at the same time. But then again, that's why we, remind ourselves of topics like this to kind of make sure that we're constantly moving in a direction rather than staying stagnant or letting ourselves fall back.
What do you think you could do different?
Well, we talked about this just the other day. Sleep more, getting more, sleeping earlier so we can get more healthy sleep. Because getting a healthy amount of sleep will make you wake up more energized. And the earlier you wake up, because you've slept early, the earlier you wake up literally will just give you a bigger canvas of a day to work on. Mm-hmm. Because you just have that many more hours of the day to get things done.
I woke up at 6:30 today.
So,
and I've been up ever since. I think maybe that's why I'm kind of a zombie right now. But today's been a very fulfilling day.
Nice.
I've done so much.
Yeah.
And I feel great about today.
You put the business on your back, bro.
Yeah. And thank God. Situations arise and I handled them. I did everything I had to do today. Even at the end, ate something light, went to the gym, got a really good workout, played basketball,
Oof.
did everything.
Oof.
And then here we are.
Oof. He's the whole package.
You know?
Hit him up at 714-220.
714-644.
So what was your biggest takeaway with today?
My biggest takeaway is when you feel like life is not going your way, you still need to don't assume the worst, just do it. When life is not going your way, you have to find a way to make it work for you. That's the biggest thing. Don't automatically just get comfortable, and be like, or just result into, boom, default, fixed mentality, right? Oh, why is it me? I'm a victim of this life. Boom. My degree held me back from being able to wake up early today. Doesn't make sense.
Right.
It's completely stupid.
Uh-huh.
So, and I'm not only talking about my degree. So, but that was my biggest takeaway.
We respect communication majors.
Hey, dude, honestly, I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I bet you did.
No, I learned a lot of very important theories.
Yeah, there actually is a lot of cool stuff one can learn in that subject.
Yeah.
Not downplaying it that much.
Yeah, I know. Screw you, bro. Mr. Kinesiology.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Talk about knowledge that you can literally apply and benefit from, right? I don't think there's any better subject.
That's,
Yeah, no rebuttal to that. Now, do ya?
That's definitely very subjective. I'm glad
it's actually very objective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm down to objectify you right now. But this is a great way to end off episode 2.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we definitely tackled a whole bunch.
We did. It was good.
And we started off with fixed, but then there are other. It's crazy to see how many other subcategories.
Yeah. All relate to it.
Just branched out of it.
Yeah.
And all the examples that we kind of disclose about our own lives and situations and stuff like that. It's great.
Yeah.
And I feel like overall, we could talk even longer about this.
Yeah.
But that will definitely be another time. I feel like this was actually pretty successful. I'm happy and looking forward to episode 3.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for tuning in to the King of Average podcast. This has been BB.
And this is Medic.
And we'll hope to hear from you next time.